Hey everybody! So in math this week we are going to be learning about telling time, and this is actually a skill that you probably already learned in kindergarten. We're just going to talk about telling time to the hour right now, and then later on in first grade we're going to learn how to tell time all the way to the half hour. So times like 2:30 or 3:30 or 6:30. We'll learn about those later. Right now this should just be pretty much a review from what you've already learned of how to tell times to the hour. Telling time to the hour is things like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. So just remembering how to recognize those times. Okay, so let's just review some things about time that you probably already know. This is a clock, right? But this has a certain name. This type of clock is called an analog clock. Let me, on my whiteboard here, write the names of the different clocks for you. Because there's the analog clock and then there's also a digital clock. So alright, so we have two different kinds of clocks. We have an analog clock, which would be a clock like this that you may see hanging on the wall, or maybe you have a decorative clock at your house that looks like this. Its special fancy name is called analog clock, and it's spelled like this with the A, analog clock. Another type of clock that you probably see pretty often is a digital clock. So a digital clock is just when it shows you the hours and the minutes like this. The digital time, when you're telling digital time, it usually requires less effort and less thinking because you just have to read what it says. With analog clock, you have to think a little bit more about it when you're trying to tell what time it is. Digital clocks, where would you see these? You may see a digital time on the bottom of your Chromebook. If you look in that bottom right corner, it tells you the time in digital form. If somebody you know has a cell phone, their cell phone may have a digital clock on the front. You also may have an actual clock in your house that's like an alarm clock or something that actually tells digital time. I've seen like thermometer things that have like the temperature and it also has the time on it. Sometimes those have a digital time. So you see digital time a lot, but there's also lots of analog clocks around too. So today we're going to talk mostly about telling time on the analog clock, and we'll talk more about digital time later this week. So this is an analog clock. This type of clock, like the type of clock that you can move and manipulate that we use in school, this is called a Judy clock. That's just the name of the type of manipulative that it is. But it is an analog clock. You have little Judy clocks in your math toolkit also. You don't need to get those out today. We'll use those later this week because today I just want you to focus on my clock and telling what time's on my clock. So before we tell time, let's also talk a little bit about these hands. So the hands of a clock represent different things. The long hand that's in blue on our analog clock is the minute hand, okay? This tells you how many minutes. The short hand is the hour hand, and it tells you how many hours or what hour it is. Whenever you read an analog clock, you always read the hours first and then the minutes, because when you say the time, like if we say this is 11 o'clock, we always say the hour first. Okay, so shorthand first, then long. Short, long, short, long. Short is hour, long is minute. Later on, when we add in like time to the half hour, you'll see more of what I mean by you say the hour first. This is 11:30, okay? So we say the hour first and then the minute. 11:30. The short hand is your hour hand. The long hand is your minute hand. On all of our times this week, the minute hand is going to be pointing straight up to the 12. Whenever your minute hand is pointing straight up, we don't say it's 11:12 or it's 12:12. Whenever your minute hand points straight up, it stands for o'clock, okay? Or in digital time, just 2 zeros. So This time is 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock. Okay? As we add on minutes, these big numbers actually represent every 5 minutes. So, we're not learning this right now, but I just think it's important to know this. When your minute hand is like pointing to the 1, it's not 11-1. These big numbers, like I said, stand for 5s. So you have 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. 12 stands for 60 because there are 60 minutes in an hour. So there are 60 minutes in a whole hour. That's why that's why 12 stands for 60. Whenever your minutes get all the way to 12, it starts over with a new hour and it starts at 00, not 60. So like I said, if your minute hand is pointing to this 1, it's not 11-1, it's actually 11:05 because these big numbers stand for 5s. Okay, that's a lot of information for this week because we're really not even going there. We're just going to hours. I just think it's always important to know all of the ways that the clock works and where we're going after we get these hours down. Okay, so let's start by practicing telling time with a few different times. Let me make one on my clock here. Okay, what time is on my clock? So remember, you're going to check your hour hand first. The hour hand's the short hand. It's pointing at 2. So this time is 2. The minute hand points straight up at 12. Remember, that stands for o'clock. So it is 2 o'clock. Okay, let's do a different time. What time's on my clock here? Check your hour hand first. Here's the hour hand. It's pointing to 4. So it is 4. Then the minute hand points straight up at o'clock. 4 o'clock. These numbers in red, I told you when you're talking about minutes, they actually count for every 5 minutes. But when you're talking about hours, whatever it's pointing to is the hour that it is. You don't have to try to think of something else in your brain. The clock can be confusing at first, but once you get it down, you're good. Okay, so we have 4 o'clock. What time is on the clock? Your hour hand is pointing straight down at 6, and the minute hand is pointing straight up at the 12. So it is 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock. Let's do another. All right, what time's on my clock? I have hour hand pointing at 9, so it is 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock. All right, one more. What time's on the clock? Tricky. Do you see the hour hand? You cannot see the hour hand. Remember, the hour hand is the little red hand. The hour hand is not seen because it's hiding behind the minute hand. So that means they're both pointing in the exact same place. They're both pointing straight up at 12. So if the hour hand's pointing at 12, it's 12. The minute hand's pointing at 12, it's o'clock. So it is 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock. Okay? Something else to know about the clock, whenever the clock is moving and changing, it always goes in a clockwise direction. Clockwise is just where it moves this way and it goes in number order like this. 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, it starts over. So look. Right here, it's 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock, it's still 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, and now it is 1. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Now it is 2. So it moves in a clockwise direction and changes hours every 60 minutes. So every time it ticks to a new minute, it's still in that hour 4 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 4 o'clock until we get back to the top. Now it's 5. 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. Now it's 6 o'clock. 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6. Now it's 7. So it just keeps going in a clockwise direction, and it makes its way continually around and changes hours every 60 minutes. Okay? So that's just a little bit about the analog clock. We're going to practice telling time all week long.